The hypothalamus extends into this area, which includes the parasympathetic vagus nuclei, and into a group of cells that lead to the sympathetic system in the spinal cord. By interacting with these systems, the hypothalamus controls digestion, heart rate, sweating, and other functions. Sensory and motor neurons travel through the brainstem and transmit messages between the brain and spinal cord. The brainstem controls many autonomous functions of the PNS, including breathing, heart rate and blood pressure. The outer chains form the parasympathetic nervous system, while the chains closest to the spinal cord form the sympathetic element. As already mentioned, the autonomic nervous system is divided into two separate areas, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. It is important to understand how these two systems work to determine how they affect the body. It should be borne in mind that both systems work synergistically to maintain homeostasis in the body. Both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves release neurotransmitters, mainly noradrenaline and adrenaline for the sympathetic nervous system and acetylcholine for the parasympathetic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system also consists of a third component, the enteric nervous system, which is restricted to the gastrointestinal tract. The autonomic nervous system receives information from the environment and from other parts of the body. The sympathetic and parasympathetic systems tend to have opposite actions in which one system stimulates a response while the other inhibits it. The organs of our body, intestines, such as the heart, intestines and stomach, are regulated by a branch of the nervous system known as the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is part of the peripheral nervous system and controls the function of many muscles, glands and organs in the body. We are usually not aware of how our autonomous system works, because it works reflexively and involuntarily. The human autonomic nervous system is sometimes referred to as the autonomic nervous system, or visceral nervous system, or even as the sympathetic nervous system. We all know that the purpose, whatever you call it, appears to be a regulatory function of the human body and is generally automatic. The respiratory function is usually also perceived by the autonomous nervous system. Note that the somatic nervous system has only one neuron between the central nervous system and the target organ, while the autonomic nervous system uses two neurons. The enteric nervous system is a third section of the autonomic nervous system that you don't hear much about. The enteric nervous system is a network of nerve fibers that innervate the intestines, gastrointestinal tract, pancreas, gallbladder. Neurons that direct impulses away from the central nervous system are called efferent motor neurons. They differ from somatic motor neurons in that efferent neurons are not under conscious control. Somatic neurons send axons to the skeletal muscle, which is usually under conscious control. Where preganglionic fibers arise and autonomous ganglia are found, helps to differentiate between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system releases chemical messengers to influence its target organs. O is also released by some sympathetic postsynaptic neurons and all parasympathetic postsynaptic neurons. In addition to neurotransmitters, certain vasoactive substances are released by postsynaptic automatic neurons that bind to receptors on target cells and affect the target organ. In the sympathetic nervous system, catecholamines, noradrenaline, adrenaline act on specific receptors that are located on the cell surface of the target organs. One of his early experiments showed that injecting adrenaline into an anesthetized animal had a very similar effect, such as increased arterial blood pressure, to that of stimulating sympathetic nerves. The meaning of the observation was not clear at the time, but it fascinated Dell, who is gradually clarifying the relationship between the autonomic nervous system and chemical stimulation by discovering that nerves communicate by releasing specific neurotransmitter chemicals. It was Dell, later Sir Henry, who showed that acetylcholine can stimulate not only autonomous ganglia, but also the synapses of postganglionic parasympathetic fibers on smooth muscles, cardiac muscles and glands, and even normal skeletal muscles. All of these apparently different and multi-layered effects are based on a fine balance between stimulation and inhibition of the smooth, involuntary, which forms the walls of the various types of tubes in the body, the heart muscle and its pacemaker, and the secretion of substances from glandular cells. Anatomically, the brain and spinal cord form the central nervous system (CNS), and the nerve tracts outside the skull and spine are the central nervous system. For functional reasons, the nervous system is also divided into the systems. Each of them has pathways both inside and outside the central nervous system. Autonomic neuropathy occurs when the nerves that control the involuntary bodily functions are damaged. It can affect blood pressure, temperature control, digestion, bladder function, and even sexual function. Nerve damage affects the messages that are sent between the brain and other organs and areas of the autonomic nervous system, such as the heart, blood vessels, and sweat glands. The autonomic nervous system regulates physiological processes such as blood pressure, heart rate, body temperature, digestion, metabolism, fluid and electrolyte balance, sweating, urination, bowel movements, sexual reaction, and other processes. Gastrointestinal secretions and motility, including evacuation, are stimulated, the heart rate slows down and blood pressure drops.